We're rolling. Let's just dive into it. Let's start with the rally car. What's going on with rally car season? How'd you get into this?
Oh man, I don't even know how I got here. So I've part of it is like seeking challenge. I think I have a good understanding of processes. So if a subject matter, part of it's like the tools of titans kind of methodology, like Tim Ferriss's methodology of like if you want to become the best at something, find the guy who is the best or the gal who's the best and use a subject matter expert to use their cliff notes of all their failures, all their successes, and then apply that, right? So part of it is a shift of my company in changing the narrow field of preparedness to a broader field of kind of living your best life. We say like operate the outdoors, go out into the outdoors, expose yourself to challenges, build resilience. And so I needed to kind of step into a position where I was demonstrating that. I thought about getting my pilot's license, but that would have been short-lived. I thought about doing some epic adventures. I do that anyway. So the next thing that's closest to one of my passions is rally driving, because I've done it in training in my special operations career, but never committed to it full time. So yeah.
And it's happening fast, right? So you agreed to do this, and then a couple months later, you have your first race.
So I think 2 months ago, I committed to it, and guys are like, "Oh, how's he? Is he going to do it, or is he just going to buy a Subaru and say he does it, and he's driving around a parking lot with cones, doing autocrossing?" I have the humbling opportunity to tap into a network of experts. Travis Pastrana is in my network. His co-driver. Ken Block lives down the road. There's a whole bunch of players in this kind of game that were, Ken Block was like me, a successful entrepreneur, late in his life, came from extreme motorsports, did DC shoes, sold that, and then was like, hey, what's next for me? That's kind of where I'm at. I've had a successful run in running Fieldcraft Survival, but I've kind of tapped my position where there's better people to run my company that have better business acumen than me. So I was like, man, let me just do it. And so 2 months later, here we are in our race in 2 weeks in my first American Rally Association national run for the championship. I'll be a rookie, so I got restrictions. But a week after that, I come back and I go to Mexico for the WRC, representing the World Rally, basically a sanctioned run representing America out of one of the two cars racing in Mexico. So it's super crazy because 3 days ago I was with Travis Pastrana and he was teaching me recce, and I was with Tom Williams, a professional WRC driver, teaching me technical things I need to work on. It's like, wow. I mean, it's like this. It's a rocket ship for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
super fun.
Tell us about these cars. I guess first thing, is a rookie car governed? And then what about the elite cars? What's going on in those things?
Yeah, so depending on your path, rally is a grassroots motorsports. That's what I love about it the most. I'm not in an F1 car. Those guys are groomed. They start driving in carts at the age of 3 or 4 to become world champions in driving F1 cars. Rally sports derives from literally a bunch of guys getting their vehicles, their everyday drivers, and driving through overlanding and driving through the woods. And American Rally Association, which is the main body, you could show up with a car as long as you're compliant. It's you have to be safety compliant with the rules, roll cage, basic safety protocols. You could buy a $5,000 Subaru, kit it out for $5,000, and have a car that you could race on the weekends. My car is a built stock Subaru STI, 2010. And for my first 3 races, I have to be restricted. They just basically do a turbo restriction on the inlet, so basically restriction the airflow, which does reduce power by about a third. And that sets me up for those 3 races. And then out of the 8 races I race, I won't be able to make a national title run. I mean, I just won't because I'm restricted. But that first season for me is just getting my feet wet. Because next season, if I have and show or demonstrate the ability to be technically proficient, but also safe, then I can migrate into a pro rally car. A pro rally car would be like an R5 Plus, a built, spec'd out car, and I would race in the open class next to Travis Pastrana. Travis Pastrana technically is on my team because he's a Black Rifle Coffee sponsored race car driver, but he drives for Subaru USA. I have not been offered those positions, even though I drive Black Rifle Coffee's team car. If I do well next year, hopefully I'll be with a sponsored factory car that's spec'd out and keeping up with Ken Block and Pastrana. Where I place, it's on me, but at least I'll be able to make a run of it next year.
So it is a team sport. So
completely, yeah.
Is it like the Black Rifle team? Is that a 6-man team?
So for us, it's Bucky Lasik, famous skateboarder. I used to watch him growing up against Tony Hawk, world champion skateboarder at X Games. Dave, call him Texas Dave, who owns Rally Ready, a rally school in Dale, Texas, right outside of Austin. Pastrana is part of the team, but he races for Subaru USA. Me, so I'll be racing the Black Rifle Coffee title sponsor car. It's also Phil Kraus Survival sponsored, my company. And then Tom Williams, who's a Brit, who'll be racing in an R5 car, or an R2 car, I think. Anyway, a professional rally car, but be with our team as we go out. And we just filmed a show telling the story of all those players for the team.
Awesome. You guys travel together, race together?
Yep. Yeah, our first race in Salem, Missouri, we'll all be together. We'll be doing the, showing our cars and drinking coffee together, and then hit the ground running. Now, there's no benefit to being a teammate because we're competing against each other, but the support is huge because the recce, which is the day prior of analyzing the tracks, and the maintenance for everything is hugely important because without that crew, that motorsports team, you're not going to be successful.
That's awesome.
It's a team sport for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Excited for the March 18th race.
I can't wait, man. It's going to be crazy. Yeah.
What's the hardest thing about it? The most humbling thing?
Well, what I've recognized in a short period of time is it has to do with your commitment to time. Like I'm doing a podcast for Mike Force this week about time allocation because it's such a significant element to being successful in anything, fitness, entrepreneurship, and or everything, And what I've seen in Travis Pastrana's work ethic and his co-driver, whose husband, Alex, is Ken Block's co-driver, they're world champions. So I'm looking at the characteristics that make them champions, and it's their commitment to time. It's their ability to be disciplined when everybody's screwing around. They're doing recce right now for the race. They were doing recce at the film shoot during their downtime when everybody was screwing around for 100 Acre in the Woods, which is our first race, because they take it serious. So I have all of that. My biggest deficiency is seat time, and I'm desperate for it. Like driving my Land Cruiser from my house to this studio, I'm thinking about left foot braking. I'm thinking about positions on steering wheels. And I think technically I have competency, I have the aptitude, I just don't have the experience. Mm-hmm. So that comes with time. There's nothing really that I've seen that is beating me up where I'm like, this is too far away from me. Mm-hmm. But I will say perception is reality in this circumstance. When I get in a car and I drive and I'm going my speed, I see everything coming. When I get in the car with Travis or Dave or whoever, Bucky Lasik, it is a different experience. I'm like, I'm fast. These guys are through the roof. I mean, Dave will take you sideways 100 miles an hour between trees and can tell you a bedtime story while he's doing it. I'm not there yet. It just takes time. Yeah, it takes time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so fun too.
So fun.
So fun.
Pushing yourself like that and learning new things just makes you a better human. Just
I need
the
that.
adversity.
Yeah, I need it, man. I got into backcountry hunting. I need those challenges to force me to kind of get off my ass and do exceptional things. And also, I want to lead by example. But for me, like TBI is a thing for me. You know, if I don't wake up and I'm not motivated to do certain things, my brain checks out. And so I need to do epic stuff all the time. Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
I can't wait.
One of the things that we wanted to chat with you about today was Mountain Tough has spent about 2 years developing a pre-deployment training program. So pre-deployment for active duty military. So we worked with special operations teams in terms of getting this program just right for like the hybrid optimal tactical athlete, and researched and studied it and broke it apart, and then had the guys test it and then rewrote it, and then had the guys test it again and then rewrote it, and then had all of our dedicated athletes test it in our lab. So it's been 2 or 3 years of testing and getting close to pushing it out in the app, and certainly wanted to pick your brain on pre-deployment, like lessons learned. Were you physically as prepared as possible? What would you have done differently? And how was it different later in your career versus early on in your military career?
Yeah, I've always been a super serious fitness guy, but always different than my peers. Like most special operations guys, for the most part, depending on the unit, they do the basic workouts of back and bis, chest and tris, trying to build physique, and what they see as strength versus stamina and endurance and mobility. Very early on, on active duty as a young operator, I was 225, and that was light for me. So I was always the guy that can carry the body armor and run miles. You know, I could do an 18-mile ruck in 3 hours with a 45-pound pack because I could run the whole thing. So I had very good endurance, but I also understood, being my size, if I lifted, I would put on excess muscle that would not be advantageous for operating. And we used to have, you have assaulters who were like kicking indoors and blowing stuff up. And then you have snipers and reconnaissance, which I mainly was in my career, who were like the lighter weight guys, because we had a building climb. We're just smart. Like we're reading a book on the, on the stair stepper while those guys are like, blah, So there was always this kind of like fun riff between the two. I just learned a lot of lessons about how flexible, how capable I needed to be functionally, and how that preparation led me. Let me give you a couple examples. Like in Iraq, remember the workout Jim Jones created called 300?
Yeah.
I took a couple seminars from Jim Jones and Special Operations Command, like some of the first that they ever released.
Yeah.
And I remember doing 300 with my Special Operations company with some of the guys. Downrange, we were in Iraq. And I still have some of those videos of like scanning around on my cell phone, and they're all like dead.
On the floor.
Breathe. Like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I could breeze through it.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys who were back and bis, chest and tris kind of guys, for the first time went, what is this whole thing? And what I attributed it to was I used to call obstacle course fitness. And when you were obstacle course fit, you had to have the ability to push and pull your own body weight, but you also had to have the cardiovascular fitness to go and move between obstacles. So that was a good metric for me in looking at my own fitness. Because if I could push and pull, if I could do 20 pull-ups and I could still run in kit, then I was fit. But most guys, they would lift because they're pushing weight off their chest on a flat bench, but they couldn't pull their body. So that would be a liability to me. You know, if you're an assaulter and you can't get over a wall in Iraq and we have to help you in the middle of a gunfight, that's a problem. So it changed the way I looked at everything in fitness. So I come from a school of Mark Twight, Jim Jones, and that realm of fitness, and was so serious about it, you know, doing 9 combat rotations and then working for the CIA, where I was bringing, you ever heard of Dark Horse? There's a couple versions of variations that SEAL Team 6 used, but those are 2-hour endurance workouts. And I was the guy in GRS that was taking a whole bunch of GRS guys, and we'd be in the gym for 2 hours. I mean, we had the luxury of doing that because of our job.
Yeah.
But that was fitness for me. And so it's changed throughout the years. I have gone through injury, I was telling you about before the podcast. And what I see in Mountain Tough that I saw 20 years ago when I first started doing these type of workouts of push-pull, focused on functional fitness, that's what I need back into my life. And when I look, you know, there used to be a CrossFit mountain, or what was it called? It was like Operator Mountain Fitness, whatever it was called. And it was just a guy who was posting WODs, but they were endurance WODs. That was what I try to get the guys to gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Lastly, I'm also on I consulted for the Texas Rangers a couple years ago, and I remember going to one of their workouts, and the dudes had like their arms out with, you know, 2 arms, and they had like tennis balls in their hands. And I was like, that's your workout? Like, yeah, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things I did in the infantry as a private, I regret. Because a lot of people look at fitness and they go, well, it's about lifting heavy stuff. And it's not. It's about resistance, but it's also about recovery.
Yeah.
And I'm playing the long game. So I need these kind of workouts that allow me to stay mobile, flexible, fit, that I could do for the next 30 years of my life, versus I don't care about looking sexy in the mirror, you know, chest and tries for the guys. I'm not interested in that anymore.
Yeah.
It's more about longevity for me.
Yeah, and when we talk to the guys, the teams that helped us develop this program, more than anything, they echoed that statement. It was all about career longevity. You know, how can I stay healthy? How can I not get an injury? How can I stay mobile? Because for most of them, they do not want to lose their spot on the team from some silly injury that's a career ender. And then when they're done with that team and they're on the next chapter of their life, they want to play with their kids, and they want to hike around and not be crippled up.
Still have their knees and shoulders. And,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Early on, when you were a private, was the military helping you with any of this?
No, not at all. No, it was always a creative idea about it, right? When I first came in the Army in the 90s, and I did 4 years in the infantry, I started realizing, even in preparation, for example, Ranger School, right? I was 18 years old when I went to Ranger School, and I'm prepping for Ranger School, and I'm spending a lot of time in the gym. And I look back and I look at what I'm prepping for, I'm like, what was I doing? A lot of the military's preparation does not fall into line with what you're actually trying to accomplish. Like, guys ask me, we have special operations, I used to do a special operations prep course, and guys would be like, yeah, but this is all rucking and running. I said, exactly, because that's what you have to do to be successful. What you see as an operator and how they look aesthetically is not what a selection candidate looks like. Because a selection candidate is lightweight, he's got strong legs, not a lot of upper body, carrying extra weight, can push and pull his body, can knock out 100 push-ups, but is not built for the gym, right? And so all of the things that we did in the Army early on was for preparation for the Army physical fitness test. Calisthenics. I used to max 100 push-ups in a minute. Like I could knock out those push-ups super fast. And I would get up. And they would be like, why are you getting up? I'm like, because I just knocked out 100, which is beyond the max. I think at the time, the max for my age was like 75. And I'm like, I'm beyond the max. I'm on the extended scale. So I'm training for the objective. And the objective is max 75. And then I move on. Well, if you're saying, ladder in combat, if you're saying the objective is to be able to move 7 to 10 kilometers to the objective, conduct a direct action mission on the target, and then walk off potentially, that's a different profile for fitness. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen is we're training, we don't know what we're doing, so we're just doing whatever we think is popular, but we're not training for the end state. And now that I look through my career field of 18 series Special Forces, they didn't do it really well until they started the Thor program and until they started paying attention to what professional industries were doing, like NFL, pro sports teams. I was in a special missions unit when we brought in coaches from the NHL. And when they brought in programs, everybody's like, what? Like, we're doing what now? We're doing like a 20-minute workout of a HIIT routine and then a 2-hour workout of low impact stretching and mobility and all these things. It's like, yes, because that's how you're going to be fit, but also extend your lifeline. Mm-hmm. I've seen guys do power cleans because they didn't know how to do them and end their careers, which is insanity to me. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's got to be mission specific.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing with backcountry hunters for years. The trend was always they want to go on a hunt, they want to get prepared, and so they'll go to the gym 5 days a week and hit the stair climber and have no idea the impacts that 100-pound pack is going to have on them later that year and just get devastated on the mountain. Even though they thought they were training, they weren't training at all specifically for the mission. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, like all the selections that I've been to, all the special forces selections I've been to, all the preparation was with the ability to perform, but also the ability to be at a peak and then recover, right? So one of the selections I went to, you had to do an 18-miler within the first 4 days. Yeah, anybody can do an 18-miler, but it was about, can you do the 18-miler and recover within a day or two to be ready to do whatever else? And guys showed up and they weren't prepared for that. They would do an 18-miler, like you said, with a 100-pound ruck. That's not training to be successful in endurance. That's training. It's like work harder, not smarter, like the complete opposite of what you should be doing. There's guys who do that because they think grit and pushing through and sucking it up is going to be successful. It's not. So you got to be, you have to look at what the end state is and then work up and lead up to that. When I trained for my backcountry hunt in Sawtooth, I was never putting in more than what I expected to max carry, and with small durations. Mm-hmm. I was doing Tabata or I was doing a HIIT routine once or twice a week, but giving myself a lot of recovery time based off of measuring my heart rate. Because now with the technology integrated into apps, you could see if you're recovered or not. And if I'm not recovered, I'm not going to be stronger. I'm just going to continue to degrade my performance. Yep. In the military, that's the worst characteristic of what we continue to fail. Mm-hmm. It's like your squad leader goes, are you tired? Yes. Suck it up and drive on.
Just deteriorating.
And continue to break yourself until you have a catastrophic injury, which is typically overworking a specific, whether it's your body or a specific muscle group or cartilage or your knees or your shoulders. There's a lead up to that, right? Mm-hmm. And we just don't pay attention to it because it's the Army, right? You get just suck it up and drive on.
In your experience, could each special operations guy pick their own path, or was the team getting everyone together on one program?
It's rare, especially as you climb the ladder of tiered special operations units, it's rare to have somebody dictate what you do. Although there are very good programs where you do a diagnostic, you get your baseline, you take measurements, you get VO2 max, and then you establish where you're at, and then through a program, a SMART program, you identify where you're going. Early on in special operations, it was group-led PT, which is horrible. I think group-led anything is horrible unless you're trying to achieve the same objective. As a sniper, for example, I had to build and climb a lot and push and pull my own body weight. An assaulter really didn't have to worry about that. And so they can get away with these heavy lifts. They could get away with Olympic-style compound movements or lifts. But for me, I had to have real good grip strength. So that was my staple of my foundation was grip strength. So it's rare to do group, but I've seen some good. The best special operations units do it based on the job, and if your role is very specific, then you would focus your attention, like a heavy breacher, who's having to sling mechanical tools, or sling a Halligan or a sledgehammer for hours at a time because he's trying to breach in a heavy breaching problem. That's completely different than a sniper who's just laying on his belly for an extended period of time after he climbed a 3-story building.
Yeah, different jobs.
Different jobs, yeah.
Yeah, and the civilian sector has this pretty squared away. I mean, if you think about like NFL strength coaches, for example, and you've seen it happen in the last 10 years where these NFL athletes are beasts, they're machines, but like the offensive lineman is trained for that specific job. And then the wide receiver is trained for a very different job, but trained very well. And it's always been really fascinating to me how like the private sector has nailed this pretty good, but the military's always about a decade behind, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run was the Army physical fitness test forever. I mean, it still might be. The max for my age and height and weight was 1154 when I was 17, 18 years old in the infantry. I weighed, coming out of basic training, 200 pounds. With my size, that was impossible for me to run an 1154. Oh, no, it wasn't 1154, it was 1054, something extreme. Mm-hmm. And I was a 13-minute 2-mile all day. They reassessed it because they went, hey, guys that are in the infantry who are big guys who are slinging rucks, it's hard to be ruck fit and also be 2-mile fit. Yeah. So our understanding of all of this, we should have been looking at professional spaces like the NFL, the NHL, professional sports leagues who spend millions of dollars developing these programs very early on. Mm-hmm. But again, you're right. I mean, we're like 10 years behind on this. So it's insanity to me. It's crazy. I mean, I remember doing an E5 school as part of the Army physical fitness test, sit and reach on a box. Like literally sitting and like from high school, and then reaching, and then you get scored. So the farther you reach in flexibility, then you get a higher score. And I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What is going on?
As an E5.
As an E5. It's like people always would joke about why are we running? It's like you're training to die tired. Yeah. You never run away from the fight, right? Yeah. And there's a big misunderstanding. Like I remember I had a squad leader, Sergeant Reed, who would eat a Snickers bar before every run, right after push-ups and sit-ups. And I used to think he was crazy. Uh-huh. And now understanding glycogen and how the delivery systems of your body, and sugar benefits you, caffeine benefits you. I'm like, why wasn't I doing that? Yeah. Like I should have been stuffing my face with glycogen and getting the benefit of that elevated status to be able to push me, but I was glycogen depleted. I was completely gassed and empty because we did everything fasted. Yeah. Because you did PT at 6:30, you worked out, then you ate chow. And it's like, wow, and nobody knew that was a thing.
Crazy.
No wonder why we were lean when we were young, because we just did fasted PT every morning, every single morning. Crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that the practices haven't got better with everything like the private sector has learned.
I don't think the military is always behind because the innovators come 2 to 3 years at a time.
Yeah. So is it accurate that you got out of the military a couple days before 9/11 and then had to get right back in?
Yeah. My original get out of Army date was September 9th of 01. And so I was on terminal leave in college when the towers were hit. And so rapidly, that day, I was making phone calls to get back in the Army. I was 20, 21 years old. Panic attack, because I was like, I'm going to miss the war.
Crazy.
And I'm in the National Guard. I got to get back in the fight. So right after that, made some phone calls, and long story short, got back in and went to selection straight from that.
Wild. Yeah, that was probably a rough couple days just making those calls.
Oh yeah, the Air Force almost took me because I was desperate in the Army. The military at the time didn't understand how to navigate all these veterans who were like, I want to get back in. And they weren't, like, I was an E5, I was a sergeant, I was airborne ranger qualified, and they were like, oh yeah, like, you could wait. I'm like, so you would expedite a private who has no training versus a sergeant in the infantry who's ranger qualified who could be on the front lines of war right now. They just didn't understand it. And so the Air Force called me, and I was going to go combat controller. And they were like, the dude made a phone call in front of me, picked up the phone, and he goes, hey, I got a guy here, and he's ranger qualified. Can he skip selection, which is the hardest part of that pipeline?
Yeah.
Can he skip selection and we put him in the pipeline? He's like, yeah, he could skip it. And I'm like, what? And they were going to let me skip the whole, it's like a 2-week smoke fest where they weed out everybody, and they were going to send me straight into the pipeline. I'm like, I like you guys, I'm in. And then the Army called me like 2 days later.
Oh.
It was like, we got a date for you. I was like, okay.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Wild.
Crazy time.
So when did you start hunting? Did you hunt as a kid or later in life?
Yeah, so I grew up with a dad who hunted white-tailed deer and had a few experiences, but I grew up a fisherman. I was on the water 3 to 4 times a week in a boat on the pier, in some way fishing. And a little intermittent in Florida, a little intermittent hunting. And then I moved to North Carolina, and we did a lot of hunting, like whitetail, deer stand, traditional hunting. But it wasn't hunting. When I got to Fort Carson, Colorado, I started getting into backcountry hunting when I had time. And then when I got out and had time, fully all in, So it's a new kind of thing for me in the last decade. But it's something I'm super passionate about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, backcountry hunting is something special, and it's amazing just the mental toughness, adversity situations.
It's brutal, man.
Yeah.
Brutal. You want the closest thing to special operations, go backcountry hunting.
Yeah.
I just went on an elk hunt, bow, archery, and sawtooth in Idaho, and it was brutal. We're getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, which is standard because you're taking advantage of the light and the light that you got till it's dark. And man, those mountains kicked my butt. I felt like I was in selection again.
Was that last September?
Yeah.
Did you guys backpack in?
Yeah, we did. We backpacked in, and we took a string of goats.
Crazy.
Goats. So we took 8 packing goats.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was super fun.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, packing goats are awesome. I didn't think it'd be a thing, and then I wound up buying packing goats just to train them up for my next hunt.
You bought some?
Yeah.
You did?
I got 3 Alpine packing goats.
Crazy.
I'll start training them up this year.
Are they hard to train?
Not really, because they're so, they have that pack mentality, so that they'll string around you. You just got to get them used to the pannier setup.
Yeah.
And once they get used to that, they just like it, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I thought it would spook the elk, and it's not at all. It's completely opposite. Like, they're next to you while you're bedded down, calling in an elk, and the elk will look at you and then be more curious because it's like, what the hell is this? And it's another wild animal. And so likely when they would get spooked to bail out, they come in more because the curiosity to check out the goats.
Crazy.
It's like a bait and ambush. It's crazy. It's so funny.
Tons of guys are using them now
Yeah.
for backcountry hunting. You see the videos where they just follow the hunter around.
Yeah, I think for access and taking advantage of a little bit more reduced signature and getting to those pieces of land that are a little bit further back.
Yeah.
You got to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are they at your house?
Yeah.
Crazy.
In my backyard right now. I got 3 alpine, 1 female, 2 males, and then I have a couple Nigerian goats that are just little
Just hanging out.
lawn darts.
Cool.
Just hanging out, eating food, spending money. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much, man. We're stoked for the race on the 18th. It's going to be fun to watch you guys, and excited to watch the whole season.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I was mentioning to you before, like the whole lead up to this, we're thinking about going to spend some time with Laird Hamilton and his holistic approaches, thermal training, mindset, resilience. The core is physical fitness for me. And so it's perfect timed that I'll be doing a Mountain Tough program and the lead up of all these things that we're doing, especially East African Safari next year and all these epic endurance races, Baja 1000. Mm-hmm. So it's certainly going to translate, and I'm looking forward to doing the workouts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you got to be fit to drive too, I'm sure, stuck in that car.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And it's about mobility, functional fitness, and pushing and pulling your own body weight, and it will kick your ass. I mean, it's like being in a car wreck. Every time you go around a corner, that thing's beating you up. Your helmet, yet you have to have good neck strength, good core strength is key, and good grip strength. And so all those things translate to, I think, all of those things translate to success for champions. And so I'm excited to see how Mountain Tough and all the things that we're doing are going to translate to my season.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.